This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And I'm your host, Dave Jewett. Today we're breaking down some of the weapons from one of my favourite franchises of all time, Battlefield. Starting from 2002's Battlefield 1942 and going all the way up to 2021's Battlefield 2042.
This particular subway level, wow, yeah, seared into my memory. So many.
Operation Metro.
So many deaths.
What other map than Operation Metro could I include if I'm showing you a USAS 12 with frag rounds? That's the home of this Battlefield 3 weapon. I'd never even heard of this thing until Battlefield 5.
Ugh. Well, we've got 3 of them, so.
Brag? If you want an even longer, deeper, extended edition of this episode where we really dive deep into the Battlefield franchise, be sure to check out our Patreon. You can actually get early access to our Battlefield 6 episode right now by joining our Patreon, which also features a longer, deeper, extended edition of the episode. But if you don't join us over there, we will still have an episode featuring Battlefield 6 hitting YouTube next week, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Also, we now have merch. You can find the whole collection at expvideo.info, but we'll have more on that later. And now, without further ado, I'll throw it over to Jonathan. Back to the heady days of 2002.
Yes, before my Battlefield time. Never played this one.
I actually did, way back when.
Feels a bit late to start. I'm sure some die-hard players would disagree with me. So we have I have to say, that's a very creditable M1 Garand for, what is it, 2004 did you say?
2002.
2002? Holy crap.
And this was in the days where first-person shooters wouldn't let you reload a Garand. You had to run it until empty. It's interesting because it's part of the engineer's kit to keep the factions sort of in an equilibrium. The assault for the Allies, or the Marines in this case, would have a BAR, and Germans would have like an STG-44, automatic weapons that players were sort of accustomed to. And players with other roles like the engineer would have like a self-loading rifle. Despite Battlefield 1942 taking place in the Second World War, the M1 Garand was probably one of the least common weapons used by players.
That's funny. I'm going to try something, because my main potential critique of this, well, it is a critique, because the proper drill or manual of arms for this thing is lock it open, push the clip in from the top with your firing hand, or your right hand. Here, we're turning it over and thumbing it in from the left. So that's definitely incorrect per the drills. I'm curious as to whether it's even possible to do, kind of mechanically speaking. I think it'd be quite awkward, and I'm sure people will laugh at me attempting it. So let's do it. So, well, I guess I should point out a couple of obvious elephants in the room here. We've got no front sight inside the sight protectors, just for graphical reasons, I suspect. And because we have no ability to aim using sights anyway, so not a huge issue. The cocking handle, or charging handle in American terminology, is on the wrong side, which I guess may have influenced their reload animation. The proper load, pull back, well, lock and load is where the expression lock and load comes from. Lock it back, clip of cartridges in, pressing down with the thumb. What they're doing, so lock open, but then we are tilting the weapon over. It's awkward. It's very awkward. And I feel like I'm going to get my thumb crushed. I think you would have to, there we go. I would have to use a bit of, bring my thumb fully over the clip to get enough leverage to push down and overcome the spring. If you just sort of thumb it straight in like this from the left, it's very, your thumb on its own, unless you're Arnold or someone, doesn't really have the strength to just push straight down. There's not enough to get hold of, not enough surface area, not enough muscle. Might be better off coming over like this and doing it. But you can if you put your thumb fully over, in which case it's not really what's shown in the animation. You can push that in. Now at that point, it's not all the way in, and you'd have to kind of readjust your thumb position. And yeah, I can't even get it in from the left. And I'm going to give up there before I do myself an injury. It's just me trying it. I'm sure someone else can pull it off. In fact, why not give it a go? Tweet the video at me, as happened with Metal Gear Solid recently. Full credit to the people that, or to the chap in particular, who pulled off replicating that Makarov stoppage, and actually even more so pointing out to me that that wasn't brass you could see in Delta, that was some odd Unreal Engine lighting going on. And so neither of those two versions of the game actually had a cartridge in the chamber ahead. Just wanted to acknowledge that. It's some fun engagement. I don't know if we'll get something like that with this, but I'm inviting it. Please, safely, very safely, see if you can do the Battlefield 1942 M1 Garand reload. This is well before, of course, the likes of us were pestering developers and trying to make them be more realistic. So it's not a criticism per se, just an observation. Bit of a non-standard reload there on this so M16A2.
I like the way the case of the grenade just bounces out, reloading the grenade launcher.
Yeah. So this is a really nicely modeled gun, again, for the time period. Honestly, the animations look amazing, especially for the time. The drills, the manual of arms is just wrong. You can reload an M16, an AR-15 this way, of course, but the only reason you would is if your bolt release was broken or you didn't know any better. So, of course, what you should be doing when a new magazine goes in is slapping that paddle on the side to let the bolt go home. You don't need to, and in fact, it's it's a disadvantage to reach up and release the charging handle to accomplish the same thing. It will work, it's just not the best way to do it. It's never been in the manual to do that, going right back to the early 60s. In fact, in US military doctrine, you lock and load it. So lock it open, put it on safe, magazine on, release, hit the bolt release, and then the reload is just mag change, bolt release. Nice and simple, but the gun itself looks great. A bit of a hefty combo, specifically the A2 with a bit of, it's gained a few, I won't say, well, not pounds, but it's gained some ounces by this point, and then you stick a 203 on the bottom. Of course, correct realistic configuration. The 203 carried over from the A1 to the A2, and your squad grenadier would absolutely have this set up. They've got the sight on there as well, the flip up ladder sight. I haven't grabbed one because our only 203s are on A1 rifles, not on A2s. I've got the burst feature there. Is it possible to let up early and only have a burst of 1 or 2?
No, you can either set it to burst, set to 3 rounds, or single shot.
That overcomes a disadvantage with the real burst mechanism, whereby if you're coming off the trigger before the ratchet is reset, your next burst of 3 is a burst of 1 or a burst of 2. Not great. We've gone from very standard to very non-standard with the Pancor Jackhammer. Talked about this a few times. Still don't have one. Not likely to ever have one, unfortunately. Imagine if you will. And it's wacky as hell. Check out the Forgotten Weapons video if you don't know about the Jackhammer. Really looks like something from a sci-fi film. And the one thing that I will never forget about it is the fact that the drum magazine can be used as a landmine. Oh, as well as the reload. So you have to basically take the gun apart to reload the thing. So all the games that cover it have to do some sort of fudged reload.
Yeah, Battlefield 2 has this giant rotary drum that just drops out and reappears.
It's a strange choice, I think, for a ostensibly grounded contemporary game with potential for tactical gameplay and stuff. Obviously not milsim, but more realistic, quote unquote, than a lot of games. To go for this as the shotgun. There are so many options they could have gone with that are in service or plausibly more plausible to have included. They obviously just wanted the Jackhammer because it's cool.
Yeah, 2142. The waves of nostalgia I felt recording this episode, they were really driven home during the 2142 section. This is the SCAR 11.
I know that the name. I saw the name before I saw the gun, and that threw me off. SCAR 11. Yeah, very sci-fi. Obvious thing to say, given the time frame. feel a bit G11 here, little bit. I don't know what's going on the front there. That's sort of, it's like someone saw Picatinny rails and drew them from memory. They look like they're meant to be some sort of rail system, but they can't be, and I'm not sure that they are. I don't know what's going on at the front there.
This is really interesting. This is the first game that I can recall that allows you to program airburst grenades. If you scroll up and down the mouse wheel when you're using the underslung sort of micro rocket, you can program when it's going to detonate.
So this is really, although I'm getting blocky G11 vibes, I'm slightly on the wrong track. This is OICW inspired, also HK, but still. We've got a top-loading magazine that we have to slap in there for the grenade launcher.
Yeah, either the rifle rocket, as they call it, or the shotgun. They both use the same ammunition pool.
Oh wow. So I'm still off base. So this is like an OICW, but instead of a 5.56 carbine underslung, it has a shotgun underslung
that can also shoot rockets and stuff. I mean, it's gameplay fudge, but it's using the same ammunition. But yeah, you can feasibly shoot bullets, rockets, and buckshot from this weapon.
Oh, bullets as well.
Yeah. So the standard is your normal munition.
Okay.
Standard bullets. Then the alt fire can be a rocket, and then the alt fire can be a buckshot shotgun.
But I see only 2 magazine systems here.
Yeah, the second magazine system they share. That magazine in game houses both rocket and shotgun ammunition.
Oh, the one on the top.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that could be made to work. Yeah, this is quite wacky. This is wackier than I was expecting. It's more ZF1 than anything else. Because it's got 3 different firing modes.
These are our original designs that we're putting on our merch. They're actually what's on my back right now. So we've worked with someone called Hatlegs to create these designs for some EXP merchandise. And I thought it'd be fun to get your thoughts on them.
What's it going to be? Oh, good lord.
Do you remember this one?
I do remember
Does this one take you back?
Yes. I can't remember what to, but it's a god-awful drum... Oh, this is slowly coming back to me. Is this a Call of Duty gun?
This was one of my builds, inspired by one of my builds in the old Vanguard episode when I showed you Vanguard years ago.
Of course, yeah. Wow. Beautifully rendered by your artist there, but still terrible. The more I look at this, the more horrible it is.
This was one of my ideas. I pitched it as the Meat 36C.
Oh, is that like has it got like an SL8 stock, or is that just like veins and goo hanging off the buttstock?
It's the latter.
That's horrible. That is horrifying, and yet vaguely endearing in a sort of cursed way, and the sort of cartoonishness of it. I think I should probably put it down out of mercy.
Our cursed collection is a limited run, but features 10 very cursed weapon designs, and we also have a permanent core collection using EXP's logos, but we've got t-shirts, hoodies, and even posters and pint glasses, all at expvideo.info. And if you check out the collection and decide to treat yourself, then it also means you're supporting the work we do here at EXP. But now, we'll get back to the video.
Bad Company 2. So we've skipped to Bad Company 2. A lot of love still for the XM8. Basically just a G36 in a tuxedo. So there is this, I believe, if not proven, then pretty reliably, rumor. The US military looked at the G36 and said, make it more sci-fi. And so that's how we end up with it. They worked on tailoring it to the requirement a bit more than the standard G36 of the day. But you basically could have put the G36 into the trial and it would have performed, I imagine, very similarly. I suppose they were going for a modular system, a little bit close to the Stoner, or even like the old Colt Car 15 family, where you had a designated marksman version, an LMG version. But they did that with G36 as well. Just wasn't it had a bit of a different flavour to it.
Well, that's the reason I chose the XM8 to feature from Bad Company 2, because across 3 classes it plays with the modular system. The Assault has the assault rifle with a grenade launcher option. The Engineer class has a shortened carbine that can take a suppressor, and the medic class has the light machine gun variant, longer barrel, drum magazine.
Needless to say, we have our mirrored scenario with the case ejection to the left, as we've spoken about before. Just looks cooler when you've got when you start out making games with no aiming down sights. It just looks cooler to have all the stuff going on. I think we settled on that in the end as the main explanation for it. Very occasionally we see a left-handed mirrored firearm in a game, but usually not anymore. Because it's become more plausible over time, because increasingly modern rifles let you switch ejection and charging handle left and right. So if you wanted your gun set up like a video game gun from the 2000s, you could. I think these games are fun because they're a snapshot of what was expected in the near future at the time. Obviously not all of the Battlefield games work in that way, but most of the modern ones have to anticipate, well, we don't have a major war going on at the moment. Well, we don't have a very major war going on across multiple countries at the moment. Therefore, when we do, we'll have to be 10, 20, 30 years in the future. Therefore, we will come up with what will each of these factions have in the future with a healthy dose of, we don't want to just give you M16s and AKs every time, so we have to change things up. And you have to give weapons to different classes. The XM8, it's almost a shame it didn't get adopted because I think they did a great job implementing this.
Yeah, similarly, it's an iconic weapon to Bad Company 2, but it was probably one of my least used weapons across those classes as well.
Oh, interesting. I feel I'm in good company then for not using it. Right, now we're into another gun we haven't got, annoyingly. I'd love to get hold of one of this series of weapons, actually. It had, I think, two main generations, 1980s and then 2000s. It came back to life like a zombie, and it's sort of well, how would we describe it?
It was another attempt to introduce a new recoil system into the AK platform, right? Or similar platform.
To an Avtomat, I guess, just not a Kalashnikova one. Yeah, so it's the other approach. So AN-94 went for hyperburst, so you get your 2 shots on target before you feel a recoil. This is the alternate approach of balanced recoil. So you send, to counteract the mass of the working parts coming to the rear, you send another mass forwards, and you equal out the recoil. It adds essentially unnecessary weight to the weapon, but so does engineering that hyperburst. So you probably ended up with similar weight between the two. And somehow, even though AN-94 won the sort of trials to be a potential new replacement for the AK-74, the AEK is the thing that's somehow won through and is still, as far as I know, a going concern and in limited military service in Russia, whereas the AN-94 hasn't been seen for, well, a few have turned up in Ukraine, but I don't believe any have been in actual use in the full-scale invasion. Equally, I don't think I've seen any AEKs, but I have seen evidence of them still around.
From what I read, the AEK was, like you said, the AN-94 won, but the AEK was lighter, cheaper, and easier to make.
I'm trying now to remember the different configurations, but I think the only one that would be lighter would probably be the short-barreled version. But I'm going from memory here, so don't quote me. Cheaper, sure, it absolutely would be cheaper than wheels and pulleys and independently recoiling guns inside guns, all of the gubbins that's inside the AN-94. But I don't know if cheaper is that significant when you think that it still isn't the replacement for the AK-74, so you're still not buying them at scale. It's a mystery sometimes as to how Russian procurement works. This particular subway level, wow, yeah, seared into my memory. So many...
Operation Metro.
So many deaths.
What other map than Operation Metro could I include if I'm showing you a USAS-12 with frag rounds? That's the home of this Battlefield 3 weapon.
Remind me, does the stock USAS-12 have the carry handle and it magically disappears when you put an optic on it?
That's right.
Yeah, I think I played single player Bad Company 1 and 2. I played a fair bit of multiplayer Bad Company 2. Even more Battlefield 3. That's where it really sort of took off for me as something I would play every day for months. But no, I haven't played it for years. Obviously, we've had more since, and I've played those 2. I don't think I've put as many hours into any of the others than 3. I think it's fair to say. As for how, my sort of take on this, Obviously, we're looking at the version without the carry handle. I don't think I've ever seen one without the carry handle. I've put a few rounds through these, and they definitely... This is good. So I played this before I got to shoot the gun, and then I played it more after I shot the gun. Noise, apparent recoil, rate of fire, it's all about there. These things are so slow, really, you'd be better off just training to shoot fast with semi, because they're so slow, almost pointless. I mean, automatic shotguns are arguably pointless anyway, but you know, the idea that you can run a semi-auto shotgun, I would say, if not as fast, then effectively as makes no difference. Yeah, I think it looks right. Actually, the Battlefield style of texturing does work quite well for the UTAS, because it does have that, this cast receiver has that kind of orange peel texture to it, which isn't super common, but does give you that slightly grainy texturing that I tend to notice on Battlefield games. And next up is the Bren. No, not that Bren. The Bren 805, or the CZ or CZ 805 Bren was its original name. In fact, this one's written on it. We have this is what you call the Bren 1 retrospectively. We have the Bren 1 and 2. We have the 2 in 7.62 with 39. We don't have the 3 as yet, although I was looking at one at DSEI the other week. Kind of interesting how these have developed. This comes out and it's really rather good, but then quite quickly they're on to the next iteration, and that's had a lot of success in Ukraine. Ton more feedback, and based on that and other feedback, they have come up with yet another generation. And they're they're really quite different, certainly between 1 and 3. So this comes out, it's still, but when this game comes out, this is the only version around. It's pretty good. I am seeing a couple of differences here. Some of the proportions of the lightning, the milled panels on the side are not quite as they are on the real thing. But overall, it's a good effort. The more I look, the more changes I see. Like the shape of this panel on the lower. I don't know if that's an early case of legal difference, or if they just didn't have great reference material for modeling this one. They're very minor differences, to be honest. This does have one of the larger, please read the manual warnings that I've ever seen. pretty prominent.
Well, then I hope you've read the manual.
Ah, yeah, the HCAR. The BAR zombifies itself, not itself, but back from the very dead, having not been a thing really for some decades. It is resurrected as a modern tactical rifle, which is kind of bizarre.
Well, important thing to bear in mind while we look at Hardline is the factions are law enforcement and criminal now, but both have some very military... I mean, a lot of them are running military-issued weapons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of any military force or even law enforcement that has purchased the HCAR. I'm very prepared to be, in fact, I'd be fascinated to be corrected on that one. But yeah, in terms of automatic weapon, rifle caliber, with accessorization, all of that, and perhaps its design intent, I'm not even sure what they were going for. But it fits this game down to a T. Because cops and robbers, gangsters, the original BAR, the Colt Monitor, used by the likes of Bonnie and Clyde. So why wouldn't, if you're doing a modern day 1930s level of gunfights between law enforcement and criminals, why wouldn't you have the modern version of that weapon? And I'd be amazed if that wasn't the thinking behind this. It's maybe not my favorite weapon, aesthetically speaking. On the one hand, the practicality. This is a heavy, impractical weapon when it was introduced in 1918. Arguably the wrong weapon for the Second World War, certainly the wrong weapon for Vietnam. And here it is back, this time with Picatinny rails and desert tan. And I think it's the thing that makes my brain itch is the two separate stretches of Picatinny with a big chasm between them.
And just so much single colour desert tan over so much of the weapon, contrasted by the very few black and grey bits. It looks like someone hasn't finished colouring it in yet.
Yeah, so normally you get a natural variation in colour of certainly the polymer parts of a firearm versus the metal, and often just because you're sourcing from different manufacturers or different batches of polymer or whatever, even you get subtle shades 50 shades of FDE, as people sometimes say. This might be the most homogenous looking one that I've seen, short of someone who's just Krylon their whole rifle the same colour, or maybe a complete Cerakote of everything in the same colour. I'm not sure what the processes are for the real version of the HCAR. But part of me does appreciate this thing for being a 21st century version of an early 21st century firearm. There's definitely a lot of history wrapped up in it.
I do apologise for making a mess of that museum, though. Wasn't my intent.
You should. So you should. It's very disrespectful. The Fedorov! Hurrah! Yes, Battlefield 1. Very enjoyable game. Last time I played this was for a charity stream some years ago with the Cody Firearms Museum guys. I haven't been back into it since, sadly, but I did play a fair bit at the time. We have a model 1916 Fedorov. If you come to the Royal Armouries, you will see that on display, where I shamelessly crowbarred it into our First World War display. Much like DICE crowbarred it into Battlefield 1. I did it first. So I can't criticize game developers for leveraging what would actually be plausibly in a battle, because I kind of did the same thing. And this is a really good Fedorov. It doesn't have much competition in the virtual realm. I can't think of, at the moment, any other games with Fedorovs in them, but they did a good job. I know some people I know were involved in helping out with this game. Often said, including by me in the text for the display, to be the first assault rifle, but then that's a real minefield of how do you define assault rifle? Is assault rifle even a useful definition? But kind of intuitively, a relatively lightweight, relatively short, relatively controllable automatic rifle used or intended for military service. It kind of fits the bill. Depends how hung up you get on the definition of an intermediate cartridge. As the name would imply, this thing existed by 1916, so of all the guns in Battlefield 1, it's maybe one of the more plausible ones, but did not feature to this extent. Now, what we have here, I couldn't resist. It's a bit more Call of Duty to dual wield, but I could in fact dual wield Mars pistols, but we'll put one of them away. We have 3 actually. Very greedy in this museum. This is, well, interesting. So I think all 3 of ours are slightly different. They were developing it as a sort of going concern. This one, we happen to see there's an oval cutout above the trigger guard. This one has a round one, like the one in the game. And we have another one with a much longer barrel. There were different calibers. So they're almost like, they were production guns that were sold, but they're almost like prototypes or developmental guns. Famously trialed to an extent by the British military, and there's the famous quote that nobody who fired it wished to fire it again, because supposedly the recoil was so brutal of this kind of artillery style mechanism, and perhaps something to do with the immense height over bore muzzle flip that would have taken place. Quite possibly to do with this spur on the back of the hammer, because you will not dry fire this, but you will fire this. It will then recock as it comes back, pivot down in your hand, and this will whack you in the hand. So I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't so much, my God, the cartridge is so powerful, as it's powerful enough and weird, this recoil system is so strange, that it was putting a lot of force in a very small part of your very sensitive anatomy. That's my personal theory as to why they said that. They refused to elaborate and then left, and we never got this in service, but it's extremely cool to see it here.
And enjoy the flavour text then. The Mars was an absolute beast of a gun. Observers described that the Mars looked more like a firearm exploding than being fired. For a time, it was the most powerful handgun in the world.
Yeah, I'd like to run some numbers on that. I mean, 45 long, or 45 Mars, is certainly, for the time, very powerful, but is it that much more powerful than 45 long Colts? I haven't looked for a while, I'll have to. We haven't covered the Mars on our channel, so I will have to revise it sooner or later. It just looks so cool to use in the game. Watching that mechanism do all sorts of crazy stuff is great fun. And I think, to be fair, everything about this game still holds up. Now, what I haven't quite spotted is this weird magazine. So on this, cartridges are pulled backwards out of the magazine and then conveyed forwards into the chamber. And I can't quite see. I don't know, maybe you've got a freeze frame.
You can just about at the very bottom of the screen see that big hook as part of the magazine.
I thought they probably had spotted that.
And the absolutely massive rounds.
Yeah, I mean, it's been called the I guess, Edwardian Desert Eagle, not least by me, because it is the size, the proportions, the visible shape of the shape of the barrel, the chamber, barrel extension, the twin recoil springs under here. It's not gas operated, but it does have the lugged, this is in this case 4 lugged rotating bolt, very reminiscent of the Deagle. So it's absolutely tailor-made for a video game to be able to have a period Desert Eagle in your Battlefield game.
Einer ihrer Panzerwagen, da drüben!
So we're in the Second World War now.
Yeah, again, really nicely textured at this point. Lots of good wear to the finish. Excellent reload animations, sound effects. It's all good.
I wasn't actually aware of this weapon until I started researching for a Battlefield 5 revisit, because in the game it's just called the Carabin rather than the actual Polish name that I won't try and pronounce other than the WZ-38M. But Carabin is just Polish for carbine, so it's a definite nod to that.
Yeah, so I was in the same boat. I also didn't know that this existed until the game came out. And I haven't thought about it much since, if I'm honest with you. Don't have one in the collection. I guess they're doing similar deep dive research into what's new and different that we can put in this game that existed, that could conceivably show up. That isn't just another Garand or a ZH-29 or, you know, it's something different from a different country. But yeah, as far as I know, it's pretty spot on.
WZ-38M Maroszek. There we go, that was my attempt at the pronunciation.
And that just looks great. That first person view looks great. And you get to see the action operating, that flat surface with the light playing across it. It's not just one homogeneous color or texture. It looks real.
This is where all the mud on the weapon could cause some concern.
Yes, so any of these open tops designs potentially is a concern, as you can imagine. Especially if you're single loading cartridges with muddy hands, you can see that. It doesn't take much mud in a chamber to cause a stoppage. I don't know, it doesn't even have to be in the chamber, but that's the one that seems to cause the real problems. So it's sort of a Polish Garand, really. Don't need me to make that observation, but. Ah, that Darne MG. Couldn't help myself.
Well, I mean, if you hadn't made the joke, I was going to. I'd never even heard of this thing until Battlefield 5.
Ugh. Well, we've got 3 of them, so.
Brag?
Interestingly, the very first one we have is dated 1912. Now, it's not the design we see here, so they could have squeezed one of these into the Battlefield 1. Anyway, we're comfortably in Battlefield V5, whatever you want to call it. I think the original intent of the name was V, as in V for victory, but whatever, it's 5. This is the one they've gone with, I think. Oh, actually, no, Model 1933 is what's in the game. Closest we have to that is the 26. Hopefully I can show you the engraving there. So quite a nice stylized logo, Darne, and the date, and the serial number. And so you can see this is quite different to the one in the game, but the basic configuration and system of operation is the same thing. They're iterating every few years with a new gun. So I wanted to show you a Darne, but we don't have that one. I like how hard to control it looks.
Well, Battlefield 5 had light machine guns and medium machine guns. This is classified as a medium machine gun, so you can't put it to the aim. You can only sort of fire it from a high ready, and it's very uncontrollable. You have to use a bipod if you want to aim down its sights.
That I can believe. Although we don't have one in an infantry configuration, I can definitely... It's machined steel and quite hefty, especially with a bipod and a wooden buttstock. None of our 3 have a buttstock. all intended for aircraft or I guess vehicle use.
So there you go. The only time you'll see me aim down the sights is with the bipod deployed and I'm in a static position.
No, I really like that. That's an excellent constraint. You know, make it very capable, but put limitations on it. Just, you know, reflecting reality of it's big and it's heavy and it's awkward. And if you want to shoot accurately, you've got to go prone. But you can Rambo that thing. And I love the way it moves around. Muzzle flash, the overheating effect is cool. Yeah, everything. Slight kind of graphical glitch there, I think, of the... Yeah, that's weird. Seen this before in something else. There's an orange strip of light that appears on the rear of the receiver when it fires. In fact, it's along the whole weapon. So it's obviously a lighting effect of the muzzle flash that's coming across the top of the weapon, but kind of clipping through the rear sight assembly. A minor flaw in an otherwise really good looking gun.
Second Charlie is now held by us.
Another Russian weapon we don't have that is current issue as far as I know. Although maybe not with that weird type of Picatinny rail on it, which does become a critique of mine with this series later on. So the AM-17, this is another kind of second chance weapon that was in development and then went away and now seems to be permanently back. Sort of, well, we've got two competing weapons really. There's this, which is kind of by default, although optionally there are longer variants, but the version in service with certain Russian units is the shorter version. Kind of a replacement for the AKS-74U, AK. But then Kalashnikov themselves have the AK-12K and C models that are also trying to fill that niche. As far as I know, it's the AM-17 that's seen adoption, and the K and the C, I don't know if they have yet. There's a lot more going on variety-wise with Russian firearms than a lot of other countries. I guess a legacy of their procurement system, that even stuff that loses can somehow still happen, and the stuff that wins can sometimes not. So we'll see what happens with this in reality. But it's a gift to Battlefield to have something that does what an AK does that isn't an AK. But I can't comment on the details because I haven't ever seen one.
One of our objectives is under attack.
Oh, okay, 5.7 by 28, so it's using the FN57 cartridge. This is I don't remember this. This is a very funky looking, it's almost like like an anime design, cyberpunk, maybe?
Yeah, the fictional bullpup pistol NVK P125, an original design. Despite it being a burst pistol, 2-round burst, it was almost infinitely more useful in single shot.
I mean, certainly true of a Glock 18 and probably most machine pistols or full auto pistols. Very unusual design, struggling to see quite how that would work, but it's not impossible, I guess. We've got the Korobov with the super bullpup with the mag right at the back, so maybe this could work. Gives you a very long barrel, of course, so it would, I guess it's worthwhile for 5.7 to give you sort of P90 ballistics out of a pistol-sized weapon. That would be the theoretical reason for this existing. Still quite a bulky weapon that you end up with, but it's one that would fit in a holster. I think you'd be better off using the extra bulk for one of the, like the B&T USW with a very slim folding stock, the Flux Raider, something like that. Ironically, effectively just current pistols in a chassis. With the SIG, you can swap out the grip frame and make it a bit more compact. But I think something like that is perhaps more plausible than in the time frame than this. But who knows? 20 years is like, it's not a long time in firearms history terms, but it's quite a long time in product terms. So perfectly, it's possible in 20 years somebody will attempt something as sci-fi as this. I mean, it's like, from a sort of aesthetic point of view, it's a nice blend of, Glock striker-fired pistol design up front and sci-fi in the back.
Are there any real-world bullpup pistols?
There is the Boberg Arms pistol that's described, I think, by them as a bullpup. So some quite extreme designs that try to make for a very compact pistol could arguably be bullpups. I had to come up with a definition for my book of a bullpup, precisely because otherwise you end up, if you go with the classic trigger in front of the breech face or the bolt, you end up describing quite a few pistols. So because that wasn't it doesn't meaningfully change anything about their ergonomics or their size or their we wrote a definition to get around that, and it was based around the grip. So you had to have more than 50% of the grip or the grasping area of the stock in front of the breech face. And if that sounds convoluted, it's because it is, because bullpup is, once you start to play around with configurations, quite an arbitrary thing.
Thank you all for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the upcoming Battlefield 6 episode. As always, a huge thanks to all of our patrons for supporting EXP and for allowing us to make cool content like this. Links to support Jonathan and the Royal Armouries will be in the description as well, so make sure you check those out and show those guys some love too. Until next episode though, thank you again for watching. Subscribe so you don't miss out on the future content we've got planned, and we will see you real soon.